Thomas wants the lead, has a man open, caught, touchdown!
Wide open, unbelievable touchdown Miami!
Caught, Amadon, touchdown!
Wow. He may be a freshman, but he doesn't play like a freshman.
The freshman is something special. Let me show you a little Sammy.
Caponero again!
Taj Boyd has just broken the school record. He has 50 career touchdown passes.
Fires, intercepted. Florida State will be headed to the Discover Orange Bowl.
Welcome to a special ACC Kickoff Live. It's the ACC Football Schedule Announcement Show. I'm Jeff Fischel, and Riley Skinner's back.
It's about time.
Had some time off since
I felt lost.
since the bowl games, signing day. So, all right, Riley, we're looking at the schedule right now. It is truly just in our hands right now. I cannot exaggerate that. I'm not at all. What are you seeing right now? What jumps out at you when you see the ACC schedule?
I think automatically you look at week one, and that is so exciting for me to see that the games out of conference between North Carolina and South Carolina, you've got Virginia Tech, Alabama, and then you've got Georgia, Clemson. I think the Georgia, Clemson is the one that excites me the most because you've got Aaron Murray, you've got Taj Boyd, both ended on huge notes in their bowl games, and it's going to be, I would assume, a top 15, top 10 battle week one.
We know you have probably not seen the schedule yet. Again, we just got it in our hands. Riley and I will break it down over the next half hour. If you absolutely cannot wait, keep watching us. Open another tab and go to the ACC.com. The conference has just put up the full schedule. Take a look, a gander. Peruse, give it a glance, scrutinize. It's all at the ACC.com. Let's dive right into that week one schedule, and it starts actually early on Thursday night, North Carolina against South Carolina. That's the nationally televised game to kick off the season. Wake Forest also at home on that Thursday night. Miami at home on a Friday night. Then Saturday, a long list of games, including some great ones. You talked about Georgia, Clemson. We're looking at the list right now, which we just had handed to us at MetLife Stadium. Penn State, Syracuse. Also Alabama and Virginia Tech in the Kickoff Classic. What's jumping out at you right now when you're looking at this?
I like the Saturday matchup, Penn State at Syracuse, a team that's coming into the ACC for the first time, and they're playing a Penn State team with, of all the off-field drama, had a very impressive season last year, have a lot of confidence, and it's going to be a fun matchup for me to watch Syracuse play those guys. It's new, it's fresh. No one's seen Syracuse playing in the ACC, and there's a lot of question marks. Curious to see what they're going to bring. I think that's a great matchup to start. Then again, we talked Georgia, Clemson, and the rest. I hate to say it, are a little bit of cakewalks. They're good intro game. Well, and you look at, Steve Addazio.
Steve Addazio, game one for him at Boston College, taking on Stony Brook.
Exactly.
A way to tiptoe into being in the ACC.
It is, and Boston College is looking for a little life right now. Yeah. They've had a down last couple years. They need some energy. They need some positive momentum, and I think Steve Addazio is going to bring that, and it's going to be a good test. Starting off playing, I wouldn't say a powerhouse team, but it's good to get the wheels rolling.
But what does jump out at you week one, and again, I'm looking at this right now, the three ACC-SEC matchups.
Absolutely.
Fans in the South love seeing these two conferences go head-to-head, and we get three of them right away in week one.
I'm a little nervous about the Alabama-Virginia Tech. Could you look at the disparity of their seasons from last year? Virginia Tech really struggled. I think hopefully Logan Thomas will have a strong showing and have done a lot in the offseason to get that team going. They're going to have to play an A-plus type game if they're going to have a chance against Alabama down in Atlanta. And then again, Georgia, Clemson,
and North Carolina, South Carolina.
Yeah. It's an interesting matchup. You've got more of a fast-paced spread offense, and you've got South Carolina, who's more of a hitchy in the mouth, downhill, I formation. It's going to be a good matchup.
Game one of the Dave Doran era for North Carolina State. They're hosting Louisiana Tech, a team that can put up a lot of points. Doran has a lot of pressure at NC State because that team, again, they made the coaching change, but they were winning the last few years.
And I put my foot in my mouth because Louisiana Tech is not a cakewalk. That's a very good football team who won a lot of games, and like you said, can throw up a lot of points. I'm just curious to see, what Dave Doran's going to bring to NC State. They need some more stability on defense. That's what they've lacked. They've had a great offense with Mike Glennon, but what's missing is that defense, and I think Dave Doran's going to try to bring that to him.
So that's week one in the ACC. There are also some fantastic non-conference games this season for the conference. You see Florida, Miami starting things off in week two, and Oregon comes into ACC Terry, goes to Charlottesville to take on Virginia.
I remember when USC came a couple years ago to Virginia, and they put up a lot of points, and it scares me because that's what Oregon can do. But I think with Phillip Sims getting another year under his belt in that Virginia offense, he's going to come out firing and ready to prove a point.
Boston, you talked about USC. Boston College travels out to Los Angeles. Notre Dame takes on Pitt. We'll talk to Coach Paul Chryst in just a minute. I know he has his eye on having the Fighting Irish come out to Pitt.
That's going to be a huge game. I mean, obviously what Notre Dame is coming off of a national championship type season, but I don't know. I mean, there's been so much all-season drama with Notre Dame, and I don't know. I think it's going to be a fun matchup to watch, and I love these out-of-conference matchups that are getting put together. I mean, you're going coast to coast with these two teams that you've never seen really play before. This can be fun to watch.
Now, the interesting thing about week one, we have one conference game. To kick things off in the ACC, it's one of the new teams of the ACC. It's Pitt taking on Florida State, and there was some juggling. If you followed the backstory the last couple of weeks, things would leak out about how Pitt and Florida State were trying to juggle their schedules to make sure this was the game that started things off, and we get it on Labor Day. The ACC likes to have that one game in week one, a conference game. This is a great way to start with the new school.
Well, I like it because they're showing the whole nation of the expansion. They're showing who's coming into the conference. I will say, Pittsburgh, good luck. I mean, welcome to the ACC. You're playing one of the fiercest defense, by far one of the most talented teams in the entire country, not let alone the conference. I think there's going to be a wake up for Pitt at the speed of Florida State, but it's going to be a great matchup to watch. I think Pitt will hit you in the mouth. We saw what they did at Virginia Tech, ran right over that Virginia Tech defense. And Virginia Tech, Florida State, they always have similar defenses. So I think Pittsburgh's going to come out trying to prove a point here.
So Pitt, in case you get confused by the new schools coming to the ACC, Pitt joins the Coastal. Syracuse will be in the Atlantic. If you want a full breakdown of ACC conference realignment, look up the piece I actually did on the ACC Digital Network channel on YouTube. Tweet me directly at Jeff Shell. I can send you the link. Pitt and Syracuse will be considered cross-division rivals, which means they are guaranteed to play every year. And joining me now, the coach of one of those new teams into the ACC, the Pitt Panthers, head coach Paul Chryst, in his second season coming up this fall. Paul, thanks for joining us. First thing, you come right into the conference. Your first game is against Florida State. That's kind of a rude welcome to the ACC, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we want to make sure the message is sent, but it's a great opportunity for our team, for our fans, and play the defending champions. It's a heck of a challenge, but it'll be a great opportunity.
But it is a great way for the Pitt Panthers to jump into the ACC, right?
Yeah, I think, what better statement could be made, than sending, the ACC's best team. It's a home game for us. It's a great way to start the, really us going into the ACC.
Now, later in the year, it's actually a great home schedule for the Panthers this year. You also have Miami at home, and then in November, Notre Dame, which will be a member in all sports in the ACC except for football. We'll have that partial schedule where Notre Dame plays 5 games a year against the ACC. That's got to be a good selling point for alumni and recruits, right? You're playing Notre Dame every 3 years.
Yeah, it is, and it's been, they've played a lot. There's a great history to that game, and I think it's obviously, to have them come here. It's a great schedule. Miami to finish out the season. Our fans, we've got to do our job to make sure that we're playing well and give them reasons to be there. But they're going to see some really excellent teams, some great programs coming into Heinz Field. Break
down the ACC schedule. It's just coming out. What do you think of the schedule the Pitt Panthers got for 2013?
Well, I think, anytime, you're a coach, first of all, you're going to, you're excited to see how the season kind of plays out. And, it's impossible to play everyone, but certainly, being able to go to Virginia Tech, Virginia, feel good about that. And we played Virginia Tech last year, get to play Syracuse again. We're excited. And also it's what it is. I think as coaches, you just deal with what's been dealt to you. And we're excited about it. And we've got a lot of work to do, but looking forward to it.
So in year one, as a head coach, your first year as a head coach, you're in the Big East. Now in year two, you have to switch conferences completely. What kind of challenge is that for you and your staff?
Well, I mean, it's, you got to just get familiar and try to, get a feel for your opponents. And it's no different. Every year you have to do that. Certainly you don't have a lot of familiarity, playing with it. Our players don't have the familiarity with it. But you know what? That's all part of it. And, we welcome that challenge.
The ACC schedule out today. Paul Chryst and the Pitt Panthers opening the season on Labor Day against the Florida State Seminoles. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So Pitt, Paul Chryst sounds like he's ready to go in the ACC in that Coastal Division.
I mean, they've got to be. I mean, especially to start off against Florida State, but also just to be the new guy in the conference. It adds a lot more pressure, but also a lot more momentum and energy in the locker room, in the community, in the university, ready to make a splash in the Atlantic Coast Conference. You're starting fresh, and this is a time when you prove it, when you play one of the best, last year's best team in the conference right off the bat. I think if I were Pitt, I'd just be fired up. I mean, especially in the offseason, getting ready to start with Florida State as the first kickoff.
The conference is doing a good job of highlighting Pitt's entrance into the conference, starting the year with Florida State on national television on Labor Day, and then at the end of the year, again, we're just going through these schedules right now. The last Friday of the regular season, instead of playing on Saturday, they're taking on Miami at home. Again, that's also going to be nationally televised, and they've got the game in early November against Notre Dame. So again, Pitt really getting some attention in year one in the ACC. Let's stay with Pitt. They're in the Coastal Division. What's jumping out at you when you see this Coastal Division schedules?
I look at the Coastal Division. The most intriguing game to me, October 17th, Miami travels to North Carolina to play on a Thursday night. And those two teams, I think, they technically could have, win and loss-wise, could have been in the championship game last year, but obviously off-field reasons they couldn't. I think those two teams come in the Coastal with the most momentum, and that Miami-UNC rivalry is always a fantastic game, and especially on Thursday night, and you play in Chapel Hill, it just adds to that whole prowess of that rivalry, and that's what I'm excited about. And also, Virginia Tech at Miami. Virginia Tech, a team that struggled a little bit last year, obviously on defense and on offense. They got a lot to prove. In Miami, my man Duke Johnson, he's ready to break out for a huge sophomore year and just blow the gates out in terms of statistics and big plays.
That last weekend really shapes up as a great one. I talked about Pitt and Miami, primetime national television. You've got Duke and North Carolina, Virginia Tech. That is a great look at what they're trying to do with that Coastal Division. Really say to themselves, this is the final Saturday of the regular season. These teams are going at it, going against each other, going for a division title.
And I like how it's set up, like you said, the end of the season, the matchups that we have, and especially because we were talking before the show started, I think this side of the conference is pretty up in the air. I think you've got 4 or 5 teams that can really battle each other for the conference title. And so that last 2 weeks can be huge in determining who's going to be playing in the ACC championship game.
All right, so in general, by the way, we want to mention, if you want to see the full schedule, you can, again, open another tab on your browser, go to the ACC.com. It's all there right for you. We're talking about both sides, going from the Coastal to the Atlantic. We know this has been 2 teams dominating, really, things in the Atlantic, Florida State and Clemson. Do you see that changing at all? Is there anything about the schedule that makes you think there's a dark horse?
We were talking before. I was like, I want to find a dark horse that's just going to surprise everybody. In my gut, I don't see it. I still see these 2 teams as dominant teams in the Atlantic Conference. Talent, speed, size, strength, just playmaking ability. I don't see any team that really can stand up to them face-to-face and overtake them. I think it's going to be one of these 2 teams.
By the way, if you're wondering about Syracuse is joining the Atlantic Division, so they start with Penn State, which is again, a great way to start the season. Then they have Clemson at home October 5th, then on the road at Florida State in mid-November, November 16th. So that's Syracuse getting used to life in the ACC. By the way, some of the top ACC players ready for the next level have been at the NFL Combine. Virginia Tech wide receiver Corey Fuller, he ran a 4.4340. Florida State quarterback E.J. Manuel ran the second fastest 40 time among quarterbacks with a 4.62. Look at what fullback Tommy Bohannon did at the bench press.
I had the pleasure of playing with that guy, and I have been with him in the weight room firsthand, and he is a beast.
To show you,
beast.
36 reps. Jonathan Cooper, the All-American lineman for North Carolina, who is no slouch, did 35.
I've seen him slap on 550, almost 600 pounds, and do a couple reps and squats in the weight room. The kid he is a weight room fanatic.
How many reps did you have at
we don't need to talk about that. They made us do like 185, not 225. I had a bad shoulder that day, so I took off. Yeah.
Well, how does that explain your 40 time, though?
We said we weren't going to bring up my 40 time. I've caught enough heck for not breaking 5 seconds. I'll say it. I didn't break 5 seconds.
5.05.
Hey,
now that you brought it up, I figured I'll just throw it out there.
Top 3 in the lateral drills, cone drills.
Right.
That's what makes me feel good at night, really.
She still lives by that. We want your take on this schedule. Tweet us at the ACCDN. Of course, we also want you to tweet us with your votes for Dunkuary. You can vote on our YouTube page for the best dunks in the ACC. What are today's Dunkuary nominees? That's coming up. And more on the ACC football schedule special. Now that Riley's seen the list of games week by week, he's ready to make his predictions. Will Florida State or Clemson be the Atlantic champ? What about the Coastal? That's next on ACC Kickoff Live.
Out with the old and in with the delicious. Commit to bold taste with the new Flavor Resolutions menu at Ruby Tuesday. 10 entrees starting at $9.99. Try our savory barbecue brushed ribs and bacon wrapped shrimp. Or take it up a notch by adding coconut crusted shrimp to our mango salsa topped Caribbean chicken. Plus, enjoy our endless garden bar, free with any chef inspired entree. Ruby Tuesday. It's all good here. Start the new year with savings. Visit rubytuesday.com today for a $5 coupon.
What's better, bigger or smaller?
Bigger!
So which would you rather have, a big treehouse or a small treehouse?
If it's big enough, you can have a disco. Oh, yeah.
Why do you not want a smaller treehouse?
Because it wouldn't be able to fit a flat screen TV, and then the TV would be about this big, and you would have to hold the wire. In the position you would hold the wire, you wouldn't be able to see the TV.
That's a pain in the buns.
Yep. Yeah.
It's not complicated. Bigger is better, and AT&T has the nation's largest 4G network.
The ACC Digital Network, the ultimate video destination for ACC fans. Exclusive highlights, live streaming games, and original live programming, unique access to the student athletes of our time and the legendary voices of all time. Defining moments, personal stories, incredible analysis from authentic ACC sources, cutting-edge content from the leaders in the digital space. The ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.
Good afternoon, Chase Sapphire. This is Stacy from Springfield.
Oh,
Hello?
yes, I didn't realize you'd be talking to an actual person.
You don't need to press 0. I'm here.
Reach a person, not a prompt, whenever you call Chase Sapphire.
This Dunk of the Day brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.
Philo gets the steal as Allen hits the deck. McDaniels dunks over Alex Lynn. Takes it right at the 7-footer.
Usually you see players go with one hand. And KJ McDaniels went up with 2 hands to finish over the 7-1 center.
Start the new year with savings. Visit RubyTuesday.com to get $5 off 2 entrees.
Welcome back to a special ACC Kickoff Live. He's Riley Skinner, former Wake Forest star, now making ACC football make sense to me. I'm Jeff Fischel, and boy, it has been quite a day. Again, we got the schedules handed to us seconds before we came up here
Still
on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. We are breaking down the ACC schedule. If you want to see all of it right now, open another tab. Go to the ACC.com. By the way, in case you haven't noticed, it's also Dunkuary around here. It's Virginia Tech's turn. We're giving you the top 2 dunks in Virginia Tech history. You choose the one that will advance to the Sweet 16. Now, Riley, take a break from looking at the schedule to follow the dunks. All right, 2 dunks from each school. They advance to the Sweet 16. They go head-to-head first. The winner advances to the Sweet 16. 12 winning dunks, 4 at-large berths, and eventually, March 11th, the champ is decided by you. You vote. Give a like to the one you like best. Or you can also tweet us with the one you like. Today, it's Virginia Tech, Deron Washington versus Deron Washington. Watch.
Good gracious alive! Lost it on the way up. Holy cow! Do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, young man. Oh my goodness!
Wow.
That's one.
Wow.
That's one. But like I said, it's Deron versus Deron.
I think the ball touched his back when he cocked it back that far. That was.
See, we should have had you in here throughout Dunkuary. You'd be impressed. All right, here's number 2.
Thorns operates. Here's Washington. Throws it down. What a play! My goodness!
When you get oohs and ahs from the away crowd, like we talked about his athleticism early in the game, but my goodness. Wall had a great look at that one.
All right, he posterized the guy in that one.
He did.
So which one?
It's tough. I'm still going with the first one. I'm going from the launching point on the first one. He took it only a couple steps from the free throw line. cocked it back, but I also like how he hung on the rim, kind of flailed his legs around, just added that extra.
Some flair is always
Those
good.
are two impressive dunks, though.
All right, so go watch the dunks on our YouTube channel. Like the one you like more, and you can vote on every other matchup we've had as well. Tomorrow, the last school, Wake Forest.
Can I come back for that?
Tomorrow, I will say it wasn't meant to be an insult, just we've gone in alphabetical order.
Yeah,
so Wake Forest is last.
Sure.
And then,
always throwing the Deeks under the bus on this show.
So that's tomorrow, and then Wednesday is when we release our 16 dunk bracket. So there you go. So Riley's already said which Deron Washington dunk he's voting for. Now you can vote for the other ones as well.
I will.
All right, let's get back to football. This is our 2013 ACC Football Schedule special. Again, if you want to be antisocial and don't want to spend time with Riley and me, and you just want the facts, go to theacc.com. We spoke to Commissioner John Swofford this morning about the schedule. He says he thinks fans are going to love the timing of some of these matchups.
It's an exciting time in the Atlantic Coast Conference with Pitt and Syracuse joining us July the 1st, and they're a prominent part of this schedule. And I think what the schedule says in a lot of ways is that the ACC is sprinting into the future, and this is another great step in that direction. One of the real highlights are our Thursday night games, because there's some tremendous matchups in those games that will give our league just terrific exposure on those Thursday night appearances. On top of that, I think you have to believe that our teams are playing the toughest non-conference schedules of any conference in America. When you look at the competitiveness of those non-conference games on top of the competitiveness within the league, then I think we're looking at an extremely exciting and competitive 2013 ACC football schedule.
We're getting tweets in as well. Riley's writing notes. We got a tweet in from Lou Gagliardi. He's a Pitt guy. As a Pitt fan, I'm very excited for Pitt football and Pitt ACC. It's time to get out there and beat FSU. So already guys are getting fired up about that Pitt-Florida State matchup on Labor Day. Riley, what are some must-see matchups you're thinking about when you look at the schedule?
Well, I'm going through right now and looking, when they're playing and who they're playing. I will see October 19th in the Atlantic side, Florida State playing at Clemson. I think is again going to be, for the second year in a row, the determining factor or the determining game of who goes on the Atlantic side. But also you look, NC State versus Florida State. I mean, you got a new head coach, and there's going to be a lot going into that game. And NC State obviously was a big upset on Florida State last year. And then the new guys. You look at Syracuse. You look at Syracuse playing Maryland. Maryland to me is a huge question mark because the unbelievable amount of injuries they had last year. I think they're going to come back even stronger, and they showed a lot of promise even when they did have a depleted team. And then again, I think that Miami at UNC game on Thursday night is going to be a huge coastal decider. And I'm trying to go through and catch up to see.
I'll let you take a look while I point something out. When we had that list up of Atlantic Division games, we had Boston College, Wake Forest. You may have noticed it's September 6th. That's actually a Friday night. So we'll see Boston College and Wake Forest play on national television on Friday night instead of the Saturday. And so for Boston College, it's actually 2 Friday night games in a row.
It's a weird timing.
Sorry, for Wake Forest, not Boston College, but nonetheless, an interesting start for them.
I had to start one year. I started with 2 Thursday night games in 4 weeks, and it's tough to get acclimated to that kind of game day and game week preparation. It really does. So hopefully they can adjust and get used to that early on. And then I was looking here. Saturday, November 9th, Virginia Tech at Miami. I think if Virginia Tech turns it around, this is always a game that's got a lot of drama and a lot of stories behind it, because they historically have been 2 of the predominant teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference, especially in the Coastal Division. I think that if Virginia Tech picks it up on defense, I think that's going to be a big game as well.
I think the guys are telling me they have some other games that they've really noticed that are standing out, and they may have put, here we go, some other games in the conference. North Carolina, Virginia Tech. We talk about Florida State, Clemson every year and how big that is. As you said, it's October 19th. Miami, Florida State. It's one of those great rivalries, and on that same day, North Carolina State. So a great rivalry day for ACC fans.
Yeah, and that rivalry with UNC and NC State absolutely lived up to its hype last year with Gio taking that punt return. I know NC State's going to be chomping at the bit to get a win, to kind of rebuttal what North Carolina did to them last year. And then November 23rd, the 2 new guys playing each other, kind of a battle out who's the best new one in the conference. I think that's going to be a fun one to watch with Pitt and Syracuse.
Yeah, NC State, by the way, a friendly schedule for Dave Doran in year one, 8 home games. That's one way to make sure when you lose your quarterback who looks like he's going to be a first-round pick, you lose your head coach, you're basically starting over in a lot of ways. 8 home games should help keep things a little easier for you to get into things. One other thing, we're also seeing a note here. Someone else, I think, made a comment on our YouTube page for today's show. Georgia Tech's schedule from the middle of September to the middle of October is going to be rough, and you can see what they're doing right now. When you start September 21st, North Carolina, 26th, the Thursday night show, a short turnaround against Virginia Tech. Then the following Saturday at Miami, we know that was such a great game last year, the overtime game. They've got BYU, so even when they're not out of conference, it's a tough game. Then Syracuse, Virginia, Pitt. It's a long run right through.
Especially that at BYU game. That, again, we talk about the game week schedule, and you get into a routine when you get to about week 5 or 6, and to have to travel out to BYU, that kind of throws your clock, your preparation routine off. So it's going to be interesting to see how Georgia Tech plays against it, because BYU, they took it to them.
Very tough. I know. Again, we're just getting looks at these over the last 20 minutes. Is there a schedule you see is like this team's got a friendly schedule that might work in their favor?
Well, I think you just talked about it. You look at a new head coach. You look at North Carolina State to have that many home games. It does a lot for your team to get comfortable. You have the fan support. You don't have to go on the road in those hostile environments nearly as much. I mean, other than Florida State, they go to, I don't want to hate on Winston-Salem, but they go to Wake Forest, not the most rowdy crowd. And then you've got at Duke, at Boston College. So other than that trip down to Tallahassee, NC State can set up. And I thought North Carolina had this very similar schedule last year.
Everyone was commenting about North Carolina's schedule last year.
And this is NC State this year.
Clemson's schedule. Hey, when you start with Georgia, you're not going to have an easy schedule. But they do have Florida State at home, and South Carolina is always a rivalry game anyway. So if you understand that you automatically have South Carolina on your schedule, you automatically have Florida State on your schedule, and you've decided to renew the rivalry with Georgia. The rest of the schedule, though, I think sets up really well for Taj Boyd trying to make a Heisman push for that team, trying to finish strong.
And you look at towards the end of the year when you really got to make that Heisman push. People remember, the most recent games. You got at Maryland, at Virginia, games where I think Taj Boyd, if he's healthy and they're clicking on the Chad Morris offense, he can put up video game type numbers, and that definitely sets up well for him with the Citadel as well right before South Carolina. I like how they put that in there so they can get ready for the Gamecocks that last week.
All right, I know, again, you're just getting a look at this. Any schedule that jumps out at you is particularly tough. That might be tough for a team to run through.
That's tough because I'm still looking.
No, I know you are still looking at it. I'll throw one out. I'll throw out Miami. Just, again, getting a quick look at this. Of course, they start in week 2 against Florida. They also have South Florida and Florida Atlantic as part of their non-conference schedule. They have Georgia Tech, then at North Carolina, at Florida State. They have Virginia Tech back at home, but then, that could be tough for a team that should contend for the Coastal title.
In that Florida game, week 2 at home, getting the Gators home, I know it's a really tough schedule. I mean, and it's definitely a really tough team to play against. But if somehow they can squeak a win against the Gators, I think sky's the limit for Miami.
It'll show how good they can be.
Exactly. And then you get that at Florida State, though. It's going to be another big test towards the latter part of the season.
We talked about the ACC-SEC matchups that start the season. Of course, Virginia Tech gets the defending champs. Let's take a look at Virginia Tech's schedule for a second. Do you have that one in front of you? Virginia Tech, here we go. All right, see, it's all over the place around here.
Too many pieces of paper.
We're living in an analog world for this half hour. Paper instead of just looking at the computer. Virginia Tech, again, in the Chick-fil-A game, August 31st against Alabama. Then out of conference for 3 straight weeks. Games that they should really start building some momentum on, which they couldn't last year.
But look at Virginia Tech, who they don't have to play. They don't have to play Clemson. They don't have to play Florida State. And I think that sets up very well. I know they have to go to Miami, they have to go to Virginia, and then Alabama speaks for itself. But this, now when you look through it, this is a schedule I think that could set up for Virginia Tech to kind of bounce back from that bad season they had last year.
Yeah, 7-6 last year, but we all had these expectations of what Logan Thomas could do for that offense.
Well, that and they brought back 9 people on defense. And under Bud Foster, it's unheard of what they gave up on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's going to change pretty darn quickly in this offseason.
I think they learned really quickly they couldn't just expect to be another great Virginia Tech defense. They had to actually work for it and be ready for it emotionally. Again, Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. Let's start looking back at the first few weeks of the season. If there's one or two matchups that jump out, again, we've talked about Week 1, Florida State, Pitt, and I think some other games that, here we go, here's some other early games that look really interesting. We've talked about some of these. Georgia, Clemson, I love. I know people know Clemson, South Carolina is this great rivalry. Georgia, I mean, Athens, Clemson is so close to each other. I would like to see this game every year.
I would too, and I think I just have a gut feeling that this game is going to be it's going to live up to its hype, and it's going to be such a fantastic viewing for those all over the country. I think they need to start making this a regular rotation in the game.
We talked about Oregon and Virginia. There could be a lot of points on the board. Phillip Sims now is the man. We know that.
He is. He's also playing an Oregon team, that loses Chip Kelly.
A lot of changes.
So it could be a vulnerable state for the Oregon Ducks playing Virginia. And Virginia, Phillip Sims, if he has a good offseason and gets those guys going and believing that they can be the Virginia team they were 2 years ago, they could come up and have a big upset against Oregon.
We just talked about Virginia Tech. We really haven't talked about Georgia Tech much. I know they made it to the ACC championship game last year. They were 6-6, then they won the bowl game. They lose Tevin Washington, but almost everyone else is back.
They do. I mean, they lose Tevin Washington, but you've got Vad Lee. And Vad Lee was really the carrier of a lot of that offense last year. And I think they're kind of the sleeper team. And it's because of the offense that they run. Everyone kind of knows what they're going to do. There's not really much difference you're going to see out of Georgia Tech. But then again, Paul Johnson consistently wins ball games, finds himself in contention. And that game against Virginia Tech last year was an unbelievable game. And to have that game early on this year, it's going to be a great one as well.
Yeah, I think people forget that, sure, it's a system, but that system puts up a top 30 in the country offense every year.
Absolutely. I mean, it leads the nation almost every year in rushing. And then Georgia Tech's defense is what's going to be the difference maker. We say it, it's kind of like a broken record. We say it year after year. But if they find that tenacity and they find that scheme that starts limiting teams to 20, 18, 17 points, Georgia Tech's going to win a lot of ball games.
Georgia Tech certainly, I would have to say, one of the favorites in that wide open Coastal Division we talked about. They do start early on. They have Elon in Week 1, then Open Date, and then Duke. So they get time to prepare for that first conference game.
They do. They do have some tough road games out. You look at Miami, at BYU, and then at Clemson Thursday night. And that's a tough road schedule, I will say. And then they've got Georgia at the end of the year. So, I mean, honestly, I think Georgia Tech may have one of the tougher schedules as well. They start off softer, but, I mean, the latter half and the middle half of the season is going to be pretty rough.
So here are some of the key Coastal games we're looking at for the first couple months of the season. North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, we just talked about them. Miami, North Carolina, we both think this is just a big game.
I do, and I think given the Thursday night, it's going to be on ESPN, national televised game, and it's just going to add on to the hype and to that Miami offense. You've got Stephen Morris, who, if he's healthy, he can put up a lot of numbers through the air. We saw what he could do last year. And then, you look at Miami, Pittsburgh, and then Duke and North Carolina. I love the Duke and North Carolina rivalry, especially Duke's upset last year. I mean, that was so much fun. I don't remember. Can't forget, we were all sitting in this room watching the game, and I swear it's like a bomb went off once they scored that touchdown. But that's always a fun game to watch just because, the proximity and just the history rivalry.
And let's not overlook David Cutcliffe. I mean, sure, he loses some great players. When you lose a quarterback who's one of the top throwers in ACC history, you lose the top wide receiver in ACC history in terms of numbers. That is hard. But Anthony Boone can step right in.
I completely agree. I loved watching Anthony Boone this year. I think he throws a deep ball, better than a lot of people in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And I think he's going to come off. I don't think their offense really is going to skip a beat. I think it's going to be tough to find another Connor Vernon, someone that sure-handed, that veteran-type receiver. But Anthony Boone, he's used to these guys. He's used to this offense. And I think they're going to come out to prove they weren't just kind of a one magical season. They got some staying power and going to win some ball games.
I do like about this schedule that we're seeing here is that they're giving us rivalry games at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Giving us Duke, North Carolina on the very last Saturday of the regular season, I think, is a great way to finish things. We know Virginia Tech always get that treatment, but now to expand that is great.
I do too, and I like Boston College playing Syracuse. They got the proximity. They're both up in the Northeast, and I think they're going to kind of create a little intimate rivalry up there that they're both up there that I like. I completely agree with you, and hats off to Commissioner Swafford scheduling the games like this and having these great games for the last 2 weeks.
Let's look at some key games in October while we filter through our paperwork. And I promise we're not making airplanes out of these. We are trying to figure this all out. Georgia Tech, Miami, and we've talked about a couple of these games. Florida State, Clemson, you can't make a bigger deal out of this game. We know this, at least from recent memory, tells us this is the game of the year in the ACC.
It definitely does. But also the NC State, Florida State.
The very next week.
It is, and it's a game that gets looked over a lot by the Seminoles. And NC State historically plays those Noles very, very well.
I can promise you the week of October 20th, after that, if Florida State beats Clemson, we'll be saying, watch out for an emotional letdown against North Carolina State. If Florida State loses to Clemson, we'll be saying, watch out, because they were going to be disappointed that they lost, and there could be a continued emotion. Either way.
I guarantee Jimbo Fisher has not thought about that game one day since it's happened. I mean, I think that NC State game is just revolving in his mind day after day, and there's no doubt that game is circled early on.
I know that game hurt them throughout. I mean, to lose final seconds, it cost them at that point an undefeated season. Yeah, and they could have been playing against Florida for a spot in the national title game. All right, let's go back. Give me some Riley Skinner wisdom from your days. Talk about what Jim Grobe thought of as a scheduling philosophy. Did you want to get a strong start against perhaps a team you know you'd beat, or did you want a tough game?
Well, I think for us at Wake Forest, they did want that. I mean, we did want to come out because in the offseason, what every team does, you put in wrinkles, you put in nuances in your offense, and you're trying some things in spring ball. And then you filter out what kind of works, what kind of doesn't. And then summer, you really rep those new offensive schemes or new defensive schemes. And those first week or two, you don't know what you're going to get because you're playing other teams that are doing the same thing. And there's a lot that you can't study on film. And so that's what helps when you play, some of the, 1AA FCS schools to kind of work out those kinks. And I think Jim Grobe always liked to play those type of teams, although we unfortunately started out with Baylor, with Robert Griffin was there, which we didn't think that was going to be that tough a game, and then Robert Griffin came along, which made it a little tougher.
Yeah.
Had to play him 2 years in a row to start the season off. But yeah, I mean, back to your point, I think for Coach Grobe, you do start with maybe a softer team. But like a Clemson or a Florida State, I think they've got the national championship in their sight, and they've got to play a big team like an Alabama or Georgia to prove their schedule strong enough.
And you schedule a certain way in September so you can be ready by November for sure. Let's look at some of the big matchups in November. Miami, Florida State, it's one of the great rivalries, two teams that came to the ACC and have continued their rivalry in the conference, and both teams this year both thinking about getting to the ACC title game on December 7th.
Without a doubt, and I think these are two of the most athletic teams. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason why they're always top in recruiting. They get some of the best athletes, and it's fun to see when those two go at it. And I like this Notre Dame-Pittsburgh. I mean, Notre Dame is quasi coming into the conference, 6 games. Is it 5 or 6? 6 games.
Notre Dame will be playing 5 games a year starting next year.
Excuse me, 5 games.
In 2014,
still,
I should
for
clarify.
Pittsburgh to get that early on and to get started with that Notre Dame game, I like what that kind of the pressure it puts on Pittsburgh. They're going through the gauntlet with starting out with Florida State, then having to play Notre Dame. They're going to definitely be tested in the ACC.
All right, now we've looked it all over. The desk is now
Deep breaths.
All right, so it's time to think about this. Give me your picks. Coastal champ, Atlantic champ. Who's playing in Charlotte on December 7th?
This was tough, especially in the Coastal side. This is my Atlantic Coast Conference Championship
As
game.
of late February.
It's Clemson, North Carolina.
Wow.
I'm saying
wow
North Carolina.
I'm saying wow because actually that's my pick as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Great minds think alike. I love it. Well, and the reason I picked North Carolina, I think what they did under Larry Fedora year one with not much time and with Giovanni Bernard going in and out, a whole nother offseason with that kind of offense does wonder. I mean, you look at what Clemson did with Taj Boyd and Chad Morris 1 year, and then they're just unstoppable in year 2. And again, 3rd year for Taj Boyd, I don't see anybody stopping them, and I think their defense is going to improve under Venables. I like both of them.
The one thing that makes me pause about Carolina, of course, they lost the 2 games last year when Gio didn't play, and now he'll be going to the NFL. But I agree that offense got going. They looked good for Larry Fedora, playing hard, and now Bryn Renner's a senior.
And the running backs that are going to replace Gio Bernard are fast.
AJ Blue and Romar Morris were both very productive last year when he was out.
They are very fast and very capable.
All right, so I've got to do some other news right now, some other headlines from across the conference.
Can you find it in this stack of papers?
I finally found it right here. Now, it is time for the ACC Now. Duke has moved back in the front of Miami in the new AP Top 25 poll. The Blue Devils are third behind Indiana and Gonzaga, then Michigan 4, and Miami's fifth after the loss to Wake Forest. Duke and Miami meet at Saturday at Cameron. The Canes still have a 2-game lead in the ACC standings. The Duke women's basketball team has clinched the regular season title. Top 10 battle. The Blue Devils beat Maryland yesterday 75-59. Duke is now 26-1, 16-0 in the ACC. Even with Chelsea Gray out for the rest of the season with a knee injury, this team keeps rolling. Duke's last 2 regular season games are against Miami and UNC. Staying with women's hoops, what a performance yesterday by Georgia Tech's Ty Marshall. The junior, a career-high 37 points and a 68-64 comeback win over Miami. Marshall's 37 points were the 4th most ever by a Yellow Jacket. And speaking of great performances, NC State pitcher Carlos Rodon is the ACC Pitcher of the Week. That's after he and Carl Keglovitz combined for a no-hitter against LaSalle on Saturday. The sophomore southpaw, Rodon, 14 strikeouts in 7 innings, and that is the ACC now. So, we've been talking about the football schedule. We gave you our pick. We both agree it's Clemson versus North Carolina, but again, it's late February.
There's a lot.
I reserve
Knowing
the
this
right.
conference, it can be anybody. There's a lot that can go on between now and Charlotte.
That's right. If you want to see the full schedule, it's at theacc.com. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter. Now that the show will be ending, I'll go start tweeting out my thoughts about the schedule as well, at Jeff Fischel, Riley_Skinner as well. We'll send some thoughts out about the schedule. And remember, it's Dunkuary all month long here on the ACCD. And tomorrow, back at our regular time, noon, Kelly Nash and I do our trending show here on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Thanks for watching.